Hello and welcome to another edition of the Moving Iron Podcast. This podcast is proudly provided by Axon, helping dealers move more iron for almost 100 years. Find out more at axontire.com. Axon was started almost 100 years ago out of a passion for keeping agriculture moving. It's that same passion that drives them today. With a vision for a better experience for both farmer and dealer, they set out to create a better way to move more iron. When you partner with Axon, you get immediate access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. Axon carries all major brands and sizes of tires, wheels, and tracks. From custom colors and sizes to fully customized wheels, you can have the solution for virtually any problem today's farmer is trying to solve. To find more or become an Axon dealer, please visit axontire.com.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving iron time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast Markets with Shawn Hackett. This edition of the Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by Axon Tire, helping dealers move more iron for the past 100 years. For more information, go to axontire.com. Also, TractorZoom delivering insights. It's a great place to go to see what's happening in the auction market because they have about 500 independent auction houses that report back as to what's going on there. So if you're interested in looking at iron comps by TractorZoom, use Moving Iron at checkout and you get yourself a discount. As normal, I have Shawn Hackett back here with me to talk about what's going on in the marketplace, and Shawn was kind enough to come on not once but twice this week, so you'll hear him one more time probably around Thursday as to what's going on. And Shawn, I tell you, it's been you kind of called it here, we called this seasonal low that we've had, and it's I think the last thing I read, like the past 60 growing seasons, this September time frame has always been a low spot in the harvest, except for last year when it was the highest spot in the harvest. So I guess as you take a look at what's going on now, Shawn, anything out there that's jumping out at you ahead of this USDA report coming out this week?
Well, you're right, Casey. I mean, we've been anticipating a traditional seasonal period here, weakness into September. And where last year we were actually anticipating a counter-seasonal rally. So this is just following the typical playbook. Everyone says, gets comfortable with the crop and we just get ahead of the harvest and decide how low we have to go. This USDA report, it's hard for me to see, why the USDA would dramatically, provide a bullish number here. I just think when you look at the good weather we had in August, I think they're going to at least, no worse, just going to keep the numbers the same. They may actually raise them a little bit, especially on soybeans. There's a possibility they could do that because soybeans really benefited from this late rain that we had. South America, I don't think there's going to be much change there. So once again, I just, if you're looking for some kind of a bull surprise, maybe the wheat market, possibly. The USDA could say something that there's less wheat lying around than everybody thought. Which could be a bull surprise, but I guess the bigger context, if corn and soybeans are going down post-report, which we think they are, even if we get a bullish wheat report, it just means the wheat market will go down less. It'll just be the strongest of the weakest group. So we're just not looking for anything exciting for this report. We think the October report could be the report that we might expect bigger changes and maybe some increased volatility, but we just don't think this is the one to be looking at right now.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump over and talk about the weather a little bit here. We got Hurricane Larry out in the Atlantic right now. It's beating up the Bahamas, right? Or Bermuda?
Bermuda.
Yeah, it's beating up Bermuda right now. And it's still kind of in an early phase, but they don't know if it's going to skirt the east coast of the United States or head into the Gulf or just stay out in the ocean right now. It's not really moving much, so they can't really make their mind up as to what's going to happen there. But as we sit here in September, the South has got their eye on hurricane season because of the lateness of the cotton crop and how it's produced right now. So I guess talk about cotton a little bit and we see happening there.
Well, remember the peak hurricane season, there's two big peaks, Casey. There's a peak between September 11th and September 18th. That week is the peak week for hurricane activity historically. So we're moving up into this, okay? So this is a period where you're looking for storms, and this is when they like to amplify. So if you're going to get a tropical system, this is when they like to amplify and grow. The conditions are typically ideal here in September for that. So even this Invest 91L there in the Gulf that's just sitting there, no one's really thinking it's going to do too much. You really don't know, because look what happened to the last Ida. It wasn't much, and then it just blew up as it got close to land because it reached those warm waters and everything was perfect. It became a borderline Category 5. So right now, anything that looks suspicious in the Gulf, in south of Florida to the east of Florida, you have to watch very closely, because if this is the time that these storms are likely to develop more strongly than a lot of times the models would suggest. So right now, at least the good news appears that it's going to miss the areas that were hit hardest by Ida. And if it is going to do something, it would be more of the panhandle of Florida, North Florida, Georgia, the Southeast, that kind of an area, and then probably go out to sea and miss, those areas up in the Northeast that got, more rain in 2 days than they typically get in 2 months. Yeah. So that's what it appears right now. But I will caution, the storm isn't moving much, and until it starts to move, it's a highly uncertain speculative pathway right now. But that's what the way the models are going with right now.
Yep.
So.
Okay, so let's wrap this up here with talking about the wheat and cattle markets here just a little bit. But right now, as you take a look at the wheat harvest, the wheat numbers, wheat is still performing strong. Kansas City wheat is right now. The local co-op here has got cash price at $6.75, and they got about 53-cent basis. So I guess as you take a look at what's going on in the wheat market. Again, I think the bushels were there like we've talked about in the past, but the quality of the wheat has not been overwhelmingly good, and especially when you take a look what's going on in North and South Dakota with what came out of the spring wheat up there. So I guess talk about the wheat market, and are you still anticipating this wheat price to kind of hold that we see right now?
We think we like wheat. Right now, it's our favorite part of the grain markets is the wheat market. If you think of it this way, low quality wheat, as you said, plenty of it, but we have such a shortage of corn globally that everyone is using as much of this low quality wheat for replacement for corn as they possibly can. And so that's been created this insane feed demand for low quality wheat. And it keeps, every report we get lower ending stocks because demand's stronger. We think this report, we're going to see the same thing. Lower ending stocks, demand stronger than the market's thinking. So the low end is just being chopped up by replacement feed demand away from the corn feed situation. Now the high end, the higher quality wheat, your winter wheat, your Minneapolis wheat, we know is unmitigated complete disaster. Mm-hmm. One of the worst crops in 50, potentially 100 years. If you look at the North China Plains, the Northern Plains here in the U.S., the Canadian prairies, and then you look at what happened in Russia. Trifecta of just horrendous weather conditions. So we have an extreme shortage of high quality wheat meant for human consumption. So on the low end, chopping up all that low quality wheat. On the high end, there isn't any. So it's a really bullish situation. And, the big dogs in wheat, we have to wait another cycle to try to rebuild that again, right? We're not going to, we're spring wheat's next spring. Right. We're going to be planting winter wheat here in the fall, but that's not going to be harvested until next, late spring, early summer. So we got the big dogs in wheat. We're not looking at new fresh supplies, until late spring, early summer at the earliest. So we have to deal with what we have to deal with, and if we have any weather problems in any of these key wheat growing areas going forward into next spring, summer, with as tight as the situation I believe is and going to continue to be, it's fireworks time for the wheat market, we think. And so we really like the wheat market. And if you really think about it, if you look at a chart of wheat, it's actually broke out and retested the highs, whereas corn and soybeans are just, kind of at the lows. So we have a really bifurcation here between wheat and soybeans and corn. And of course, the reason is it looks like right now the market's made up its mind that we have a good corn and soybean crop. And at the same time, there's worries that we're not going to be able to ship it out the port as quickly as we thought because of all the problems with that Ida caused. So it's whenever we bottom here, as we expect, let's say this mid-September timeframe, we think there's probably going to carve out a low for corn and soybeans. We think the wheat market's going to be the one to really lead the charge. We think we really would expect that to be the real thoroughbred here in the grain complex. Whereas last August, as you know, soybeans were the thoroughbred. Then corn became the thoroughbred. Now we think wheat's going to be the one that's going to toe the line for everybody. So
yeah, a lot of things happening in wheat right now. It's just it's a very, very odd time, I guess is the best way to put it, because of what, how things have played out to where they're at right now. And like you said, there's so much that wheat is not high enough quality that a lot of it's just getting fed. So it's definitely an odd time. All right, let's jump over and talk about the protein complex here just a little bit. Cattle and hogs, depending on the day and the week, one's way up, one's way down, and then they decide to switch around and high-five each other on the way up and way down again. So box beef prices are still showing some signs of there's some weakness there some days, and then some days are not. So it's just a slop back and forth between the market. You kind of talked about that a little bit here in the past. The September timeframe, you expected to see some drops in the overall cattle complex and the beef complex and those kind of things. So I guess as you take a look at what's going on right now in the proteins, I guess anything jumping out to you right now that you did not expect to see happening and kind of moving forward, what's your thoughts, between now and the end of the year as you look at these markets?
We're generally have a bearish tone to both cattle and hogs. Cattle reached our target of 138, 140 December, which we thought would be the target before we made our top, which we did exactly that, and then we rolled over. Hogs made their top, several months ago. We just think that we're. You have to think of it this way: we had this initial surge of reopening the economy and that initial demand, one-time shot. It's over. That's gone. We have seasonal demand. That's if you're going to ship stuff for Christmas, you kind of need to be, you can't wait too much longer. You kind of, so that buying is starting to subside some, and even though the cattle animal numbers are starting to thin out, they're still going to be pretty healthy this fall. So we think weakness in October, Casey. We're pretty unfavorable. Both lean hogs and feeder cattle and live cattle here into December. We think, into October. We think October could be a period where we would look for some kind of an overshoot or a low point for the livestock complex. But until then, we think we're going to, it's going to be 2 steps down, 1 step back, kind of action, like you've said, but ultimately working your way lower. And so we're not, we've been recommending for a while, as you know, to start cash selling in this area. And if you haven't done so, try to use rallies to cash sell into the fall. Make sure you got yourself, set up here to get through that valley that we see. But we look for October for an opportunity for lows, but we still think there's considerable downside still in both markets heading into, let's say, the first half, the middle of October. Then we would be potentially looking for signs and signals of the way we look at things for a bottom, but we're not optimistic until then, unfortunately, for the producer. We just think we're heading lower. So,
yeah, and everything is kind of pointing that direction. So I guess as you kind of look forward here, kind of listen to what Shawn's talking about, pay attention to those kind of things, and really kind of buy those rallies as you can. So,
but remember now, for the livestock producer, though, there's going to be an opportunity for feed. We've been talking about this for months. This fall, mid-September, early October, the traditional time frame. We're going to be looking for the signals we look for in our smart money algorithm and other things. It's going to be a really, really good opportunity to lock some really good economic feed that we haven't seen in a while because of what we think is going to happen, as next spring and summer. The next thing, the first, if you haven't sold enough, if your cash sold enough of your cattle and the hogs, please do that. But assuming you've done that already, get ready to get your feed taken care of. It's really important because if we're correct about what's to take place in the cattle market specifically, with we're looking for some pretty high prices next year. If you get your feed price locked in at a really good level and you're selling a really, 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 really historically high cattle price, you could be looking at a really exciting 2022 after getting beat up for a couple of years. So we're real excited that the cattle producer is going to be able to really put some significant equity back into their farming operations here in 22 if they play their cards right. But mission critical is getting feed taken care of this fall.
Yep.
So,
All right, last thing real quick, and we'll jump out of here. But the biggest thing I want to kind of talk about a little bit here as we kind of wrap things up is, so we're heading in that September time frame. I guess we're in September now, moving in through that late fall. And you've talked about it several times, since you've been on this podcast, that this September of 21 is going to be a true tale of what we see happening out there as far as sun cycles and solar minimums and those kind of things are taking place. This is going to be that first precursor that we see. All the indications show that September is going to be a fairly warm, fairly dry time frame, but that doesn't mean you can't have some dips. And out here where I'm at, we have this. It could be 100 degrees one day and 38 degrees the next. Because that happened this today. Yeah, I think it was the 7th or the 8th last year. It was 105 degrees for 3 days and it snowed. So I mean, 3 days later. So nothing like that in the forecast this year. But I guess as you take a look at these things and stuff that you've talked about, Shawn, we're heading into that first real window of what you've talked about. So talk about that a little bit and what you see kind of coming down the pike.
well, remember, because we've been forecasting an active hurricane season, that tends oftentimes to push a lot of warm, moist Gulf air into the U.S. and provides a lot of warmth, which is why September is overall going to be, looks pretty warm because we're just going to keep pumping that tropical moist air in, and it's going to be pushing back, on the cold air that's up, up north. But there's two ways that you can get in an active hurricane season. You can get a really wild cold push in September, early October. One is you get a big hurricane off of the east that comes in close to the East Coast, okay, but then pulls away. That has the action of actually sucking the warm, moist air away from the U.S. and can provide a conduit for cold. Now, the one that's out there right now doesn't look like it's going to get close enough, okay? We have to watch it, of course, but if for some reason that were to move closer to the coast and then spin around, that could be that. The other thing you look for is you look over in Asia. Another big thing is you look for a big typhoon that comes in, goes like around North Japan, skims the coastline of China, and then swings around and then pushes into the northern Atlantic jet stream. If you get one of those horseshoe typhoons out in Asia, that also has a history of pushing a short-term, really nasty cold spot into the U.S. within an active hurricane typhoon season. So we would need one of those two things, Casey, to overcome this constant push of warm, moist air coming from the Gulf. It doesn't look like the one Larry is going to do that, but it's obviously we still have to watch it. It doesn't look like it. And right now, I don't see, at least in the next 2 weeks, a large typhoon doing that kind of a horseshoe. So right now, I don't see those conditions for the next 2 weeks. But that's just for the next 2 weeks. We'll have to just keep monitoring this. Obviously, the hurricane season is always very, things could happen really fast. Suddenly things change and you have to be monitoring. But look for those two signposts for how do you get cold in September or early October in an active hurricane. And one of those two things have to happen. So,
right on. I guess as you take a look and you move past September into mid-October, the 1st of November, we could see some real active cold weather happen pretty quick, right?
We, officially winter starts, I think, was it December 21, I guess, the official start of winter. So we believe that winter is going to fire up, and our advanced work says that we're actually going to start off with a sudden stratospheric warming event. That means where you get very, very warm air that develops over the Arctic and pushes the cold air down into a polar vortex. We think we could be having a major polar vortex event by mid-November, a full month before winter's supposed to start. And we're not talking about, we're talking about this major polar vortex cold weather event, like just crazy cold, a month before. We think that's how this winter's going to start off. I think it's going to start off with a bang out of the gate, and it's going to scare the hell out of everybody to say, oh my gosh, why did that happen? And is this a sign, more of a sign of the times? And what you're going to start to see happening, Casey, all the weather guys are going to start looking for answers. They're going to start saying, "Oh my gosh, wait a minute, we have this and this," and all of a sudden people are going to start realizing that maybe this is where we have trouble this winter. Mm-hmm. So we would really, really look for that mid-November. Look for the weather models and the weathermen to start warning about a sudden stratospheric warming event and a polar vortex event in November to kind of set off this long, cold, snowy, protracted historical winter that we've been talking about on your program really since we started talking with you a few years back. Mm-hmm. We think it's going to start off with a bang, and it's going to really shock everyone that we're going to have that kind of cold air that early. And we think, once again, we don't think that's a one-shot thing. We think that's going to be a repeated pattern throughout the winter time, that we're going to get those very consistently and regularly throughout the winter. This is not going to be where you just get a couple of weeks like we had last February and it's over. This is going to be you're going to get a big one. You're going to have it's going to happen over and over and over, and it's going to be very, very snowy, record snowpack. It's going to be very difficult conditions to operate things for a while. So we'll be talking about that at your summit here next week.
Yeah.
We have a
can't believe it's already next
week. Very, very detailed presentation. Go over all the different signposts, the different variables, the different cycles, how they're aligning, why our confidence is so high. We throw all kinds of alphabet letters like QBO and AMO and PDO and what they all mean. And so we hope we can take a lot of letters and put it into actual practical action for those that attend your conference.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it'll be well worth their time. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be one of the highlights of the event. So, Shawn, great information as usual. Folks want to reach out to you and get more information about Hackett Financial and what you can do for them. What's the best way to do that?
Our website is Hackett, HACKETT, advisors.com. Right on the front page, we have podcasts, video interviews, white papers, sample reports. Really gives you a good breath for our weather work, how we look at things, how we price forecast to see if what we do might be able to be of some value to your listeners.
Right on. Well, good deal, Shawn. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Make sure you check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where you're going to find the latest editions of the Moving Iron Podcast. Also go to MovingIronLLC.com, and you'll find all of the great podcasts there as well, the entire library, as well as the blogs are all out there as well. The Moving Iron Summit's coming up next week. It's pretty well full, so if you wanted to come to that, probably have some last minute, maybe 1 or 2 spots open, but that's about it. So pretty well sold out there. So looking forward to that. Shawn's going to be there. Shawn, like he talked about, has got a great presentation. I think folks are going to really enjoy, as well as a couple other great stuff out there. If you want some more information about that, go to the Moving Iron Summit up in the upper right-hand corner of my website there, and you can see all the information that's there. So with that, I am Casey Seymour with Shawn Hackett. Let's go some iron, folks. Out. You want to have a meaningful competitive advantage to help sell more equipment. Whether you represent the sales, parts, or management department of an implement dealership, there's a surprising amount of complexity when it comes to tire, wheel, and track technology. Let Axon worry about that so you can get back to supporting your customers. Axon has leveraged years of experience to create a streamlined process that gives you a proven path to help today's grower and sell more equipment. The roots of their organization go back almost 100 years to the invention of the rubber tractor tire. Supporting agriculture is the number one driver of Axon, from product development through sales and service. To find more or become an Axon dealer, head over to axontire.com.
Moving higher in the 21st century. Hard-working people working hard for you and me. Moving higher, time and time again. Through the years you'll find us here. Moving higher.